everybody, welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host and Disembodied Hands, Quindy, Disembodied Beard John, and I have no idea about the state of a Coroniko today, but I expect we'll find out. Hi everybody, how is it going? How are you doing? Pardon me, I'm gonna turn on my mini fan. It's kind of warm in here. Kind of warm. At least I'm warm. Hey there. We are here, we are turtling. I like Turtle too much to stop working on Turtle is what it comes down to. I do want to work another ReaperCon mini into the rotation. I might drop Tiefling Paladin out for a bit. I'm scared to drop Gnome King out because he's just like, he takes so long that I'd hate to like stop working on him and then never want to pick him up again. So for now, Gnome King stays in rotation. Tiefling Paladin might jump out for a bit to make room for a ReaperCon model. I'll just have to figure out which one. Maybe the guy with the sword, with the ghostly sword. That dude with the base and stuff. All right, we have salvaged somewhat. The yellow and the teal now work together more or less. The yellow and the green work a little bit better together. So now, and I was working in kind of a blue-black, but I think I'm actually gonna kind of stop and not go with necessarily with blue, because on this turtle, which we're using as the basis for our other turtle here, I actually went with indigo as one of the colors. And I like that. I like how it looks. So I think instead, I was just thinking about contrast today. I think I'm going to go black indigo highlighted with some night sky down here. On this one, I actually used rich indigo, but I don't think I can get away with that on the big turtle. And the reason for that is scale. We can go with a more saturated accent color if it's very small. But when we start looking at a bigger model, which this is technically quite a bit larger than this guy, all the accents are much bigger. So you're risking more going with a hypersaturated, like a rich indigo color on here, unless you can keep it small. Same thing on the Gnome King, right? With that bright blue that we used for the gemstones. That is a very big model, but the gemstones themselves are small, so we can get away with it. Hey there, Kodiak. Oh. Alrighty. So, I want black indigo. So I need to figure out where I stuffed my black indigo. This is a good question. We're not sure of any of these things. I know it's not there. Of course, it's in here somewhere. I know it's in here. There it is. I know it's in here because I know I put it in here. But I put it in a different place. So, still learning where all my colors went when I reorganized my drawer after the Reaper trip. I'm still pushing to rename this one. Rename Black Indigo. Black Indigo just doesn't sell. So, I want to rename it Shadow Dragon because then it will sell. Also, it's the right color for a Shadow Dragon. I have faith. Marketing, folks. So this is very similar to the color of the new Black Knight liner. Except, of course, the liner, it has a different chemical composition and a slightly different color shift. And, of course, it's more transparent. But if you want a higher coverage version of that, you want to reach for your Black Indigo. I want to grab my... Where did I put... Now I have to figure out where I put the... There's Rich Indigo. Where did I put Night Sky, though? Oh, no. I don't know. I'm so, like, where? There it is. Phew. Oh. Terror. Terror. Just because, like, again, I don't know where everything is. I'm like, I know it's here. I know it is. Yep. Ron is stuck on fantasy names, and that's why it's likely to happen. But, I mean, a lot of people, quote-unquote, How many is that really? Because we don't really see that in our sales numbers, Hyper. Like, the problem with a lot of people is that every one of us has kind of our own echo chamber of people around us. And sometimes it seems like a lot of people in our circles, but then when you look at the greater world, it's not the same, right? And that's really disappointing. Because, yeah, I would have liked to, like, use more artist names, right? Obviously, I did use a lot of artist names in the original line, or more descriptive art names, right? But the sales don't really hold up there. It doesn't follow us. So, I mean, it's not a big deal. Like, if you're going to not use a paint just because of the name, I'd rather, like, have more people try the paint and like it. And the people who, like, don't really like fantasy names, but are perfectly capable of figuring out if it's a color they like to use. Plus, shadow dragons are like a bluey, dark bluey purple. Like, it's pretty much. So, yeah. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Yeah. I don't really, at this point, honestly, I don't really care either way. Like, I don't care what the name of the color is at this point. Is it a color that I can, the only colors that really annoy me, honestly, are the really nonsensical ones, like somebody's in-joke, like, or just something that's like a reference that not everybody would get, so that I don't actually know, especially with browns, this annoys me, because then I have no idea if that brown is something that I actually could use. So that's me. Yeah, I'm not calling out a specific line, Hyper. I think that most colors, you can figure out what they are. I think that for me, it's only with the earth tones. Like, I honestly don't know. Like, I like a more descriptive term on my earth tones. But these days, I'm actually using just a mixture of everything. But I'm mostly, like, if my circle solidifies the way I think it will, I'll end up using a lot of the golden stuff, which is going to be just artist colors, which I'm very familiar with, to block in, plus MSP for all of my refinement, and the new Chimera Velvets for, like, hyper intense and glazing. Like, that's kind of what I'm thinking I'm going for when I need that hyper intense pop of color. Eventually, I'll get my Chimera Velvets. Eventually. When I need more saturation, like, those are what I'll pop in, and otherwise it's going to be the golden and the MSP, both of which I'm very familiar with. Plus, we are going to do an equivalencies list, so, like, at some point, Kara and I have already talked about, like, hey, like, new colors or whatever weird stuff starts coming out, or if you change stuff, like changing Black Indigo to Shadow Dragon, letting people know, making a list, definitely a thing that's on our to-dos. All right, so we're gonna start here, and I want to look at something else I might have. Yeah, let's actually, I don't think I want to go this light, but I'm going to grab Icy Violet, because Icy Violet is a natural highlight for Night Sky Indigo and for Rich Indigo. It can work with either. If you want to use it with Night Sky, then I recommend adding a little Night Sky to it, since it's naturally a pretty saturated light. So there's our pretty little indigo triad. Now, I don't want to use too much of this because I want this to be a dark. I already talked about yesterday about how on Gnome King I really did not follow my rule of choosing some pure dark colors as well as accentuating dark shadows. So I feel like you've got to start thinking about that at this point. So as I continue to fill out my colors, even though my indigo was not my dark when it came to the little turtle, I think it's going to be my dark, especially because Little Turtle, the back of the shell, I only did green because there was so much stuff on that turtle. But this turtle, I already did like a blue liner, but I'm going to go and do the black indigo instead. I should still be able to do the other colors I had in mind, but maybe not. We'll see. It's all was a compromise. Normally we would never do that, Hyper. Normally we would never. And if not for Ron really wanting to go more toward fantasy names, it still might not happen. But yeah, when a color is out, it's out as what it is. Unless, you know, we have changed the names of colors before. Or Reaper has. When I left. Changed a few colors' names. Anti-shine additive became matte additive. Some of the skin tones changed. Stuff like that. So, I mean, the ideal is the ideal. We aim for the ideal, but... Again, it's not really my... I'm not, like, directly there, so... I am a consultant outsider of sorts. Mr. Incredible stuck working at the insurance company, yeah. Not quite that bad. Alright, I need glasses now. I can mix paints without glasses, but I can't actually apply paint without glasses. Now, the other thing that doing this loincloth pretty dark will do for us is it enables us to make these pouches stand out with different colors or lighter colors or whatever we want to do. I do see a little kiki hair stuck in here, or a piece of lint. Or no, that's okay, it's a fold. I see what it is now. It looked like a piece of lint. It was very cleverly posing as a piece of lint. I don't know why the poor turtle is, like, wearing chains, except that maybe the chains actually link into the shell. Like, maybe that doesn't hurt turtles. I guess if something gouges into the shell, maybe it's not painful. I have no idea. But I suppose that's why you would use chains. If they didn't hurt, and they didn't really impede you. Hey there, Russian. But yeah, when I left Reaper, I had to come to terms. I knew that MSP was no longer my, you know, under my responsibility, my direct responsibility anymore, and I was okay with that. I made my peace with that. Like, is it a little wonky when, like, I really, you know, when I care about legacy, you know, and the paint line, like, suffers, then I'm very sad, but, I mean, I made my choice. If I wanted to continue directly controlling the paint line, I needed to stay at Reaper. But in the end, my own happiness and, like, where I wanted my life to go as far as the direction of it was more important than that. Which may seem, you know, you may agree or you may disagree, but I'm still happy with the choice, even if things happened and stuff got screwed up, which it did. At least I was able to go back and fix some of it when I went to Reaper and train Bonita, kind of in the why of why we do things, because that's what got lost, right? Was the why. Because when you don't know the why behind something, you're able to arbitrarily make decisions that can hurt the product. He is very metal, isn't he? Alright, so I'm just going to get this black indigo in here. And the first layer is actually, it looks pretty light because I'm using it thinned over white primer, but I will darken it down. Oh no, Cornico. Alright, so I'm kind of looking back here. I'm going to use this just darken in a shadow back here. We've got potion vials, hopefully with an anti-breaking enchantment on them. All right, I'm going to go over the back shell here so I can get at that purple, that hint of purple. I'm going to actually reach for a larger brush to do that. Immune to the rain. Where's my number 2? Number 2 Da Vinci, here you are. The number 2 is so much bigger than the number 1. Like, it's double, more than double the size. It's crazy. It's crazy how it scales up. But it's not as big as the number 2 Winsor & Newton, which is kind of crazy. Alrighty, let's get this purpley color on there. So that's going to make it a little darker, a little more twilight colored. Kind of like it. I'll do this pretty often if I want to adjust a color. I think I'm going to do a, for the next YouTube video this week, I think I'm going to do one on contrast. Light-dark contrast. We'll start to do little bits of like color theory and stuff for the YouTubes. Starting pretty simple and getting more complex as we go. I'll probably call it Fundamentals of Color Theory, and we'll do a new series. Or Color and Light Theory Fundamentals. Do you think I should throw light in there or just do color, guys? I feel like I almost need to put them together because a lot of people, a lot of color theory has to do with light theory. And that's why I think all these books talk about them in the same breath, like Color and Light, both books of Color and Light. Because I feel like a lot of miniature painters would never search for light theory, but they'll search for color theory. You're amphibious. Yeah, amphibians are pretty cute. We used to like pick up salamanders in the creek when I was a kid. They were adorable. And great crested newt. You should be able to choose the amphibian you are. If it's gonna, if your living space is gonna make you amphibious, the least it can do is allow you to choose. So you can see how much darker that's coming off now as it dries. We'll get a little bit of difference, but you still should see a difference between that and that. And kind of the difference here, guys, is also, let me get in. Like, part of this is that this is still drying, but part of the reason that this looks like it has more depth is also that this has just got a lot of black in it. And although black certainly can be, it can read as the blackest black, right? Black is hypothetically the darkest color. Often mixing cool tones like blues and purples into your black will cause it to look darker. So the purple here definitely gives another dimension and makes it look darker than just this blue liner, which is pretty flat. It's mostly black. Nightmare Black would be another great example of this, where the Nightmare Black will look darker on the model than the blue liner. The Nightmare Black having more blue in it. So the more black you put in a color, counterintuitively, it can end up reading as not as dark as something that has more complex shades in it. Hey, Short Rest. Yeah, we're working on it. I gotta get the blue and the black indigo to be dark down here too. I thinned it a little bit too much. We're working off of a Bardsong mini that I painted, which also was a turtle, and this turtle reminded me of that model, so I decided to more or less go with a similar color scheme, but obviously this one is much larger. So I'm going to be doing, and this one is a gaming model. It was super speed paint. But I'm roughly working on that, so now that we're adding the indigo, the little guy, the indigo was a brighter color accent, but on the bigger guy, I'm making it a dark. So not like one for one duplicating the color scheme, but I always liked it because it's a cold light from above is how I painted it. So all the color choices are colder, and I'm using kind of a washed out blue to highlight everything. We got knocked off course. But thanks, I'm glad you like them. Like a mini dinosaur. Yes. Alright, so let's darken this down. Because I want this to be a dark on the model, I want to make sure I want to start dark, essentially. So when you look at starting at mid and working down and up, or starting with your darkest color and working up, you're always going to get a darker effect if you start with your dark. It's like working over black primer versus working over gray or white. It's the same sort of thing. Happy Tuesday, Twisted Noma. So I really want to make sure that this is very dark. And I could have underpainted this, actually. I could have underpainted this in black, started out that way, and then put the black indigo over the top of it, which, you know, takes a little more work hypothetically, just because I had to mix up an extra color. But it would have worked. I'm getting a lot of paint onto the pouch here, but it's not a big deal because it's shadow side. So I can just use water as I did to kind of blend that in. I've hit the point of my meal tracking where it's starting to be a chore, and I'm just like willpowering my way, getting determined. I'm seeing some small results, so I think I'm solidly down 2 pounds in 2 weeks. So now we gotta see what this week holds. And my measurements are going down just a little bit here and there. So hopefully, it's just hard right now because if I actually was a lower weight right now, it would be exciting because I'd be like, you know, creeping up toward a goal I hadn't seen in a while. But because I gained some weight back, I'm just like retreading the same old dang territory, and it's like really frustrating. I prefer, I was always a white primer person in short rest because I have a hard time seeing, hey, it's enough. I have a hard time seeing details on black primer, like a really hard time. I don't like it. And I find it really hard to work up lighter and brighter colors on black primer. So I mostly do white, but I switched to Zenith for quite a while just to check it out and try it. I think depending on the paint line I'm using, I would either use Zenith or now that I am working a bit more with traditional artist paints again, tube paints, for that I think white primer is definitely the answer. But yeah, so it depends. So this one I went white because I knew I wanted to kind of do the brighter colors on it, and I didn't want to have to fight with the black. I also sometimes don't like the texture, the speckly texture you get on the Zenith, having to work on, you know, really trying to blot that out. And if I'm going to paint anything like really light and bright, like Fairy Dragon here, who's getting a really, really like Technicolor bright paint scheme, it's much easier to paint dark over light than it is light over dark. And so I always tend to go that way, even though it means a little more work. But I'm not afraid of, like, you know, painting in my own shadows. And at this point, I've yelled contrast at myself enough that, that I feel like I can force myself. I had a hard time early on in my art career, and this includes 2D art. I went to art school, or went to school for art, I guess. I didn't go to one of the big, like, art institutes, but I went to University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I majored in art. And I always had trouble forcing myself to go darker, because my art as I was growing up, as I was a kid, I used mostly pencils. And it can be very hard to get really dark darks in pencils. So I had a hard time for a lot of my early, even miniature painting career, forcing myself to get really dark shadows, even though it looks better. And that was not helped by my white primer choice. But eventually, after working with Zenith enough, I started to get more of a feel for it. And now I'm finding it easier to just paint in my darker shadows and have that work for me. Yeah, I feel that, Kodiak. I'm using a new meal tracker called Macro Factor, which I really love. It uses a dynamic algorithm to dial in what your actual calorie expenditure is per day, based on, like, you set your goal, and then it's like, okay, we're going to start you a little high, or what it thinks you should be at, which is usually a little high, and then it's going to slowly creep you down if you don't lose weight, it'll slowly adjust your numbers until it gently glides you in at exactly where you need to be. So yeah, I'm liking it so far. I feel like I'm actually gonna finally end up with an estimate of how many calories I actually burn instead of some stupid formula that may not apply to me. Yeah, I was using MyFitnessPal, but I switched to Macro Factor, which is actually Macro Factor is even a little bit cheaper, and I like their logging better. So I think MyFitnessPal is like $74.99 a year, and Macro Factor is like $71.99 a year. So not very much difference. I'm gonna get out my brown liner, guys, just because I want to line around some of the areas here, just to have it open. Then we'll start highlighting our indigos. But yeah, once I get down into the 170s, I'm going to be a lot more excited about what I'm doing. It's also like my body keeps trying to tell me that it's hungry also, because I also upped my weightlifting. I probably need to, maybe I need to adjust my rate of loss, because I know I'm recompositioning and I don't want to be hungry. Although I guess if you're cutting calories, you're going to be hungry here or there. And sometimes I think it's just my brain telling me that I'm hungry, and I'm actually not. Like, I just ate breakfast. I know I'm not really hungry, but my brain is sitting here going, ee, ee, a lot. Like a baby bird that wants to be fed. So part of that is just figuring out my body signals again. But yeah, good on you for fighting for the weight loss. Keep rocking it. Rainbow glitter frill, yes, definitely. Definitely, that would be Koro. £10 isn't that much though, Kodiak. It's not that much. If we just convince ourselves, we just remind ourselves, it's not that much. If I was down 10 pounds, like if today I was down 10 pounds from where I am right now, I would be super thrilled. So, and it's not that much. It's not that much. I just have to keep with it. I think it's just like prioritizing and focus at this point. All right, so let's get our little... I'm using Night Sky. Obviously, it's showing up a lot more than I want it to. I also have slightly wet paint still. I also feel like I want to... Yeah, that's pretty good. It's a good surface. It's just taking a while to dry. Must be a little humid today. That's probably why I was feeling warm, even though the house isn't that hot. But yeah, the other reason I like Macro Factor is that if you read they talk about their algorithm and their philosophy in one article on their site, and their philosophy is never to guilt you. Like, the person who created the app actually struggled with weight loss, and the thing he hated the most was how all the apps would guilt you. Like, if you went over your calories, it was suddenly in glaring red, and, all this kind of thing, so all these little subtle guilts. And he's like, our app will never guilt you. If you go over a day, you just go over a day. Your calories don't adjust. We don't try to punish you and make you make them up. You just start every new day fresh, and that's the way it is. Like, he's like, this is far more likely to work than any guilt strategy. Which I love. Like, that was enough. Like, when I read that, I was like, you are now my app. And MyFitnessPal got canceled. And once I got used to their logging actually is really intuitive and easy now for me, so I like that. Yeah, of course. You've got to like, have a goal and celebrate with your brain. I mean, they do encourage you, like, the biggest thing, though, I think that this app talks about, which a lot of other apps don't, except for Noom. Noom did talk about this, but then Noom is all about the psychology of weight loss. But it's like, the best thing you can do is just start thinking of yourself as a person who, right? I'm a person who does not, like, instantly reach for pizza. I'm a person who, who is striving to be healthy, right? To embrace the identity that you're trying to get a hold of. And identifying is going to be far more useful to you in the long term for motivation. If you think of yourself as a healthy person, you're less likely to just reach for a huge slice of cheesecake. Because you're a healthy person, and a healthy person wouldn't do that. You might have a little piece, because a healthy person has no problem having a little piece. But identification is a big thing for all sorts of goals. I mean, I always kind of felt funny about it because it feels like imposter syndrome when you first start, especially if you have a lot of issues around whatever you're trying to, modify, like food or exercise. Like, I had a really hard time thinking of myself as a runner when I started running. But, like, since I decided that my goal is actually to be a runner, like, I really like it and I want to keep doing it and I want to get better at it. I've started thinking of myself as a runner and identifying as a runner, and that allows me to use my running as a motivator for my weight loss, because the more I lose weight, the better and faster and easier running will get. And so now that I've identified as a runner, I want to improve, and the easiest way, weirdly, to improve for me, other than just keeping on with the running, is losing the weight. So it becomes like when I sit there staring at my meal tracker going, this is going too slow, arg, why am I still this weight? And then I stop and I refocus and I'm like, yeah, but in another 10 pounds, running is going to be so much easier and we'll be so much better at it. And it helps to keep me focused. All right, so this is so dark, I probably need to go with kind of a half and half. So I'll mix a little bit of my black indigo into my twilight and kind of try to create a gradient in there. But a lot of this is that these folds are very sharp too, so it's hard to create a gradient. Hey there, Laura. I mean, even something as simple as starting to believe or telling yourself, even if you believe it's a lie, telling yourself that you're a good miniature painter and starting to identify with yourself as a good miniature painter can help you, when you hit an angst or a frustration point in the hobby and say, no, I'm a good miniature painter. I'm going to find a way through this. Really giving yourself the talk back at that point. And sometimes, like, if we are forced to put the hobby down for a while, we might be, like, tempted to stop thinking of ourselves as a miniature painter. But if you want to pick the hobby up again ever, it's useful to continue thinking of yourself as that. Just telling yourself, I'm not doing it right now, but I'm still a miniature painter and I can pick it up again anytime. Like, as you get older, actually it was, I was listening to the audiobook about the 48-year-old who took up Spartan racing. And she kind of brought up that same point, that as you get older, especially, you understand that you can put something down, but you can still pick it back up because you've done just that at several points in your life. Whereas a young person is more likely to like fall out of a hobby and think, oh, I'm not ever doing this again. You know, I'm done. This isn't part of my identity anymore. And then years later they come back to it, right? And for them it's a surprise, but oh, power outage. Yeah, well, at least it's planned. At least you're expecting it. All that said, part of me is tempted to stop the extra weightlifting right now because I am so freaking hungry. Like, the running makes me hungry the day of, and the weightlifting makes me hungry the day after. The body is like, you are not giving me enough calories for this. And I'm like, yes, I know, body. Use some fat. Here, have some fat. There we go. So we've got some nice... We're keeping a lot of dark. We want to keep a lot of dark because otherwise it's not going to look like a dark space. But I like that, actually. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Still a little bit... It went a little more vibrant, maybe, than I thought it would. But I don't think it's going to clash too bad. I think it's actually pretty okay. We'll see as we go. We'll see as we go. Oh, I hate that poly. It's always so disruptive to have like a plumber or a house, house cleaners or whatever coming when you're in the middle of your life and you're just like, oh my God, I have so much to do today and I have to stay flexible for this person, right? And dreading throughout the day that you're going to get the call at the worst possible time. I hate that. I hate it so very much. Like, I've just gotten to, like, working it into my brain that, on a day when stuff like that happens, the day is just going to kind of be a wash, and that's just the way it is. Like, to only get the absolutely necessary things done, and don't kick yourself for anything else you can't get done. Because it's just, like, it's not productive at that point. You can't control it. Anyway, all the sympathy. I hope they actually call it a very convenient time, and you're able to, like, get things, sorted quickly. Yeah, I know. I remember your maintenance people, Quindy, kind of being like this. And it's double bad when you've got an animal that you have to worry about when they're in your apartment. I'm glad I am not apartmenting anymore. 4:30 for D&D. Alright, there is some white back down in here. I'm going to try to very carefully just flood this area with the brown liner. And then, yeah, there we go. Then I can take my brush and get a little water in it, just a little, and very gently blend that line of liner in. I'm going to bring it up there. So now we got a really dark shadow in there. That's good. That's what I wanted. Yeah, Quindy, I feel it. Yeah, ice makers are notorious for being the thing that breaks on refrigerators. And I'm so ice dependent, I dread the day that ours gives out. There we go. So bringing in the shadows harder, darker through here. Probably will use the indigo for the gemstones as well, just like I did on the turtle's necklace on my other one. I think I'm gonna lock them in with brown liner first. They're faceted gems, and that's double hard. But if you're, you know, if you're just like, I just want to paint these dang things, then paint them like crystals, outline the facets with white. We'll get down to this. When we get down to the faceted gems on here, it'll be kind of a pain. I'll probably do the gold first. I usually start my reds a little darker, short rest, and then I go up. I tend to go up with oranges on dragons, depending on the dragon, but since, you know, you've got the whole, usually with red dragons, you've got the whole fire motif anyway. So I tend to bring them up with oranges. But I tend to start with a darker red to begin with, so that when I get up to like a bright red, so here, let me grab a couple colors. So I'll start with like a red as dark as that. So then by the time, you know, I get up, like blood red is actually then a highlight instead of my mid-tone. And then by the time I get up to clear red is definitely a highlight. That's the most intense saturated red we have. So my initial triad might start here, and then I'll actually bring the shadows down more before I highlight this up with oranges. The other way that I've highlighted reds is just to put some white down and then to glaze this bright red over the top of it, which gives you a higher highlight without actually reaching for orange or pink. It is a little bit more finesseful though. Like it can be a little more fraught trying to get to execute on it. But yeah, actually I'm prepping the Reaper Anniversary Dragon because I'm doing a Dragon's Masterclass on my Patreon for my $10 tier. And I'm planning to, he's going to be in like earth colors and red. I decided I wanted to paint him like an earth dragon, with some turquoise accents. So I'll be scrambling. I'll be working with this question soon enough on my own. So, all right. Let's do some highlights out here and try to bring out some of the texture out here. I was going to do some yellows and reds out here, and I think I might try that and see how to do it. Sure, short rest. I'm not sure like what your level is or like, you know, what techniques you usually use, but yeah, hopefully that helped a little bit. And even if you started with a brighter red, you could first shade with a darker red and more than one, and get more contrast that way before you start reaching for highlights. You don't have to go up, you can also go down, I guess, is the other thing I tell people a lot. Alright, so I'm going to use about a 3-to-1 paint to water mix with this pure white, and we're going to underpaint some designs on the shell, and then I'm going to experiment a little bit with colors. I know that I'm going to be using some greens. This may be too strong. I might put another drop of white. This may actually have been a 4-to-1 that I just mixed up. Alright, one more drop of water and flow improver. Alright, that's better. I don't want these to be super stark. Yeah, Yeah, I think red dragons look good when they've got really dark red shadows. I like the drama. Especially if you're painting an evil dragon anyway, like going darker is like intuitive, right? For story. Candy red dragon doesn't necessarily scream evil. Sadly. Alright, so we're not necessarily doing highlights here so much as we're maybe doing some streaks of color on the shell. So I'm going to try to follow the little sculpted whorls that Jason has put on the shell. And I've thinned my white so that I have the ability to just sketch these in a little bit paler, and then... But Candy is evil. I guess you're right. You're right, Julie. And you are the dragon expert. So we just put some of these in here. But I want to be able to sketch these in here and have them be a little bit less bold. And then go... and put another layer of white over the top of them to get more. And although I'm roughly following the pattern that Jason has laid down, it's very rough. Yeah, American Candy is definitely evil. Like, it's not worth the calories, most of it. Except for the specialty stuff. Like, American, like, you know, like, mainstream candy is evil, Cornico, but we do have some decent, like, chocolatiers who do, like, good boutique stuff. But yeah, if you're talking about your average candy bar, the only one I can eat anymore is Snickers. And most of the time I'd rather have my own chocolate chip cookies anyway. Yeah, it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of, it is kind of like a stone dipped in water, but we've got to throw in some colors here. I want to pick this up a little bit. Yeah, because that's kind of the texture if you look at it, right? And then when you highlight it like this, you know, bring that out. So now I'm going to try to intensify kind of the centers of these things. I originally wanted to put some reds and yellows over this. Although the red would very much fade out under the blue lights, so maybe it'll end up more orangey. Yeah, frozen candy can be tasty. I like the almond Snickers a lot. Although, I don't know, there's just even frozen candy these days is like, it's just not worth the calories for me. I have like chocolate covered orange peel, little pieces that I love. That's pretty like high quality stuff. Much less, like, I kind of look at the candy bars in the grocery store, and the only mainstream candy that I still like cannot resist at least once is cream eggs for Easter, the Cadbury stuff. I still let myself have like 1 or 2 a year. Ah, yeah. Yes, lime is... I hate green apple flavor. Ugh. I was never a big Skittles person, but I like Starburst. And I really love Tootsie Rolls. Actually, Tootsie Rolls are the evil thing. The evil thing for Halloween. The flavored ones. Those can get me. There we go. So now you see what I've done. I've kind of focused on areas to make parts of this lighter. And you're able to do that when you thin your white. You can make your initial sketch and then you can focus on the center of each of these and create that even more like kind of a ripply effect, right? All right, now I want to see if I can actually make this look like my brain wanted it to look. 1 second. I want to look up some real turtle pictures. I can do it at least once. Hyper. Yeah, it's a sugar bomb. My body knows it's a sugar bomb and it's asking me why, but oh, I got some resolution of my drama, my first world problem yesterday with amaretti flavorings. Although I am kind of peeved at them because some of the flavors I want essentially use a certain like base that is not as water soluble as some of their other ones. Like the glycerin base they use is very water soluble, and I don't know why they're still calling these other things, these other flavorings, water soluble when they're using like, well, you can't add them to water with any success. But their cherry cola one is glycerin based and should work, and it's a cola, but it's a cherry cola, so I'm gonna have them replace my defective cola flavor with that. So at least there is some resolution. What do I want? Turtles. Give me turtles. I'm going to Google turtles with colorful shells and go to images and hope I can get some real actual turtles and not tons of Photoshop turtles, which inevitably I get. Box turtle. That's pretty. So I'm just trying to look at, like, to see if there's anything like what I was thinking. And box turtle feels like it's, like, kind of... But it's definitely different. So box turtles have definite patterns. There's really not a whole lot like I was thinking. Maybe the thing I was thinking of just doesn't, like, exist. Because painted turtles have all their colors on their undersides. And the thing I'm looking for, I'm just not seeing. I'll look for real turtle shell pattern. Yeah, so we have a lot of like... That one's cool. Ooh, that's pretty. Yeah, that's close. Like kind of like that, like except with colors. So light at the center and then fading out. So this is close enough. Cool, short rest. Yeah, I'm the person who created MSP. I haven't been in charge of it for the last 5 years because I moved and now I just stream for Reaper. But for the first, if you tried MSP at any point from when we created it in 2003 through to, or 2004, through to 2019 and 2020, that was me. I hand mixed 99% of all batches. And I created all the colors and I created all the formulations. Yeah, so alright, I'm gonna use this as an inspiration but do something of my own. We'll essentially remember that the center is lighter and it moves out to darker. And we'll work that way. So that means I want to maybe brighten up the center of each of these a little bit more and then fade out. Oh yeah, probably. I mean, it depends. If it was a couple of years ago, I was no longer there. If it was earlier than 2020, if it was pre-pandemic, then you met me. If it was post-pandemic, I had already moved out here to the West Coast. But if I look strangely familiar, then probably it was pre-pandemic. So yeah, I'm gonna Focus more white, brighter white at the center. Hey, Roger. But yeah, I mean, I could totally see like a world, because I use our paints for different things. I use Master Series for most things. At this point, I just know how to use the paint line, right? I mean, I created it, but I can totally see going for like a Vallejo, going for a higher coverage line for your initial stages, and reaching for MSP. I mean, you can make Vallejo, at least you used to be able to make it do smooth blending, but you had to add so much water and it would just break if you did. I don't know if they've changed their formulations, because I started off using Vallejo. Like, before I worked for Reaper, I was a Vallejo user, because it was the best paint line that was available at that time. In fact, when I was brought on, Ed wanted me to develop the paint line specifically as a competitor to Vallejo in that space. Because that was the paint line that miniature painters were like picking up at that point. All right, so intensifying my white here, going out to lighter white on the outside. Let's use some yellow. Let me see what my yellow was. Terran Khaki, Ruddy Flesh, Golden Glow. Okay, I was really throwing things together for the yellows on this turtle, so I'm going to grab my Golden Glow. Where is it? It's hanging out somewhere. There it is. I'm going to use a little bit of the Ruddy Flesh and Golden Glow and see what I can do for a yellow on here. See if I can get something I'm happy with. So the Ruddy Flesh is very similar to Rich Leather. It's very similar to a Raw Sienna, an artist tube, which means that when you add white, it is going to go a lot more yellow. It's very yellow-brown. And here I'm going to actually add a yellow with white in it to see what I can get. But yeah, Reaper's strength is in the thinned applications. So layering, glazing, that it excels at thin washes, it excels at all those applications. I also wet blend with it very successfully. I do a lot of wet blending actually on this stream normally. All right, let's grab a little bit more water. This is what I'm getting. It's about 4-to-1 Golden Glow to Ruddy Flesh. I think I'm gonna be okay with it. I'm gonna try it and see. Pretty high coverage, thanks to the Golden Glow. Yeah, I need to. Is that out now, Twisted Oma? Quindy, is the Flood Relief Mini released now? I thought it was releasing. I guess it is the 15th. I don't remember if it was the 15th or the 16th it was releasing on. Yes, it is out. Okay, yeah, I need to order a couple as well. And then I want a reddish color, actually. We haven't added a reddish color onto this. I think I'm going to go for something like Auburn Shadow, but I'm going to have to mute it a bit. Maybe I'll just glaze with my Auburn Shadow, because it's a little too intense. But I want something like it. So I'm going to grab it. It's like a burnt sienna color. And I'm going to thin that down. And I might use yellow for everything and then glaze the red over the outside. That might be the way to go. So I'm going to do about a 1-to-1 with that then, if I'm going to glaze with it. 1-to-1 paint to water. All right. Yeah, I totally want to get a couple of those. So it was funny. We were talking about the flood, David and I, this morning, actually. Okay, so what we're getting here is we're getting a little yellow, but because the color isn't intense enough, is not saturated enough, it's actually just kind of looking white when I apply it over white. So that says that we need to darken that down a little bit. I'm actually going to reach for my rich leather, which is just a little bit more punchy than the ruddy flesh. And I might also put in a drop of candlelight, because we did use more intense yellows to glaze over the front of our turtle here. I might grab a tiny bit of lantern and put it in there. I want it to be a little bit more... Remember, these are tiny little like brush strokes, right? So we need to make sure that the color is intense enough that it's going to show up. The smaller the area that you apply a color to, the brighter the color needs to be for the eye to actually pick up on it. I'm going to shake out my lantern yellow a lot. Okay, let's put a little tiny bit in there. Alright, so I added a little bit of rich leather, added a little bit of the lantern yellow. I'm hoping that'll intensify it and darken it a little bit. It did. Then I'm going to try to do that again. But yeah, David is frustrated because, you know, he wishes that people would just do an objective kind of breakdown of how they could do better next time on the flood response type of stuff. And we decided that I'm an idealist cynic. Because I'm like, I totally understand why people are casting blame, even though I wish they wouldn't. Like, it's like I understand, like, how people can be very, like, cover their butts and self-centered, even in a terrible time like that. But I don't like it, and I wish like it was a better thing. But anyway, I hope that they can get, you know, help to all the people. Those floods are terrible. I don't know if I like becoming a cynic. It's like I understand human nature, but I wish that human nature was different anyway. Alright, so that's better. We're getting the yellow now. See? So we had to make it a little bit darker and a little more intense. So... yeah, it got kind of dry. I'm sorry that the Grand Canyon is having all that. So the underpainting is going to help us get this color to show. Wouldn't be as successful if I was putting this over the indigo directly. And it might even look a little greenish if the blue in the indigo picks up the yellow. But I'm going to do yellow first out here. And then we're going to add some red and we're going to see if we like it. Yeah, I think your husband has a point, Hyper. I think that especially because we're all so exhausted and busy these days, like everybody is, having that emotional, like, he's right that the emotional need, like the urgency of it, is what drives change, right? And because we are all just scrambling half the time just to make our lives work. So he has a point for sure. Alright, now if I lose a little bit of the delicacy of my brush strokes here, if I get a little globby because I'm trying to rush, I can always bring in the black indigo and kind of trim up anything that got not neat. Yeah, that's kind of that's how I say I'm a cynic. I agree with you, Twisted Oma. The finger pointing just starts. Because then all the people, like, you know, the people who are in power or the people who are, like, responsible, like, they don't want to get blamed. There's some panicking. But it's, you know, what's going to happen. And I pointed out, you know, it's very human. It's very human to seek, you know, seek the problem. To seek out someone to blame. I mean, that's why scapegoating was a thing, right? It's sad, but it's true. We're still doing it. Okay, so a little bit of red down here, a little bit down here. I think I'm going to do just a tiny bit in here. Alright, so let's take that really cool kind of Starry Night kind of look, and let's glaze some red out over the edges. Oh, the mini is for 90 days? Yep. Yeah, have fun, short rest. Thanks for stopping in. If you have any more questions, just feel free. I'm here every weekday, for the most part, unless weirdness or travel happens. And I'm happy to answer any questions you've got. Hey, Crowley. Alright, so I'm taking that auburn shadow and I'm going to glaze it. And see how that works. I don't want it to be super intense, but I want to work it in. And as I get more toward the middle, I want to mostly work it in on the outsides. Alright, so glazing. And I'm kind of liking this. It's getting there. It's close to what I envisioned. I just need to work it a little bit more. I want the center to stay yellow. But I want some of this red. And it's a very brown red, but that's okay. I'm looking for organics. Two 3-hour car rides, yep. Alright, I want to get my yellow firmed up here. And then I'm going to grab some white and I am going to lighten up parts. Get us a little bit of variation. And then I'm going to take that yellow and lighten up the center of the red with it a little. Often I run out of energy to discuss this kind of thing just because I know there's so little I can do directly to help it. So I'm more likely to do things like, you know, like contribute to a help fund rather than join the discussion. We all have a limited amount of energy. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of red in there. David just wishes people were more analytical than they are, I think. Like, he has a very analytical mind. He likes to be objective as he can be, and, like, seek real solutions, which actually is why he's been very successful in his job. Because he's less likely to throw blame if something goes wrong at his job, and he's a lot more likely to just have, you know, a post-mortem, you know, or participate in a post-mortem that just kind of says, how can we do better? Which is a really healthy attitude. It's also, I think, why he's not into, like, guilting himself if he doesn't finish a model or anything like that. Like, he's just not ever in a blame mindset. And so if he just doesn't want to finish a model, he just doesn't want to, and he just puts it aside. And he doesn't, like, yell at himself for spending time on something he wasn't going to get done, or for starting something new. And it carries over, like, it's in his work and his personal life. I've been striving to get to that point of, you know, being able to start a new model without a lot of guilt. What do you guys think? Like, is it too much? If I do that over this whole shell, is it going to look cool? Oh, we're talking about all sorts of stuff about... I mean, I'm talking about more like the hobby, you know, and casting blame, essentially, whether casting blame is a waste of energy and all this, or if it's, you know, necessary to engage the emotions to, you know, da-da-da-da-da. There's all sorts of things about it. But, I think I need to trim up my lines a little bit, so I'm going to reach for my black indigo. And I want to tighten up some of these where I got a little bit of rough. I can go back in and put lines between them, or make them taper off nicely where they didn't in the first place, and kind of sketch in. Get good next time. That's the advice, huh? It's just like totally a Starry Night turtle shell. I love Starry Night. I think I do want to do it. I think I want to put a little bit more on the bottom. Kara. That's completely counter to everything I believe. I mean, come on, I'm an older adult, like, starting new things in my life, so the whole you've got to do it by your 5 or there's no point is kind of like a sock in the face and not true at all. I know you're joking. It's like such an antithetical, like, statement. So I'm using my white here to lay down just a really kind of, just a little bit of light out here. I don't want very much. I don't want it to overwhelm things. But I am going to put a little bit of my painted color down. There we go. Yeah, okay, now I'm liking it. Hobby gatekeeping, oh no! Man, it used to be a lot worse, hobby gatekeeping. Nowadays, there are enough of us giving the knowledge out to anyone who will listen. There we go. Okay, I like that. What do you guys think? Yes? No? Maybe? Weird? Okay. Do more? You like it? I think it's close to what I originally envisioned. It's not quite there, but it's close, and it could look cool. It definitely livens up the back. Like, if we imagine the whole space filled like this, It'll take us a while, but it'll look cool. Commit to the bit. All right, we'll commit. We've got the colors mixed up, so may as well. It's just a little extra work. It's not too bad. It's freehand, but it's not freehand. Something like this actually can be good practice for freehand, because just like lining, except you're using white, right? You are going over a pattern that already exists. So it's not as difficult as trying to come up with a pattern on your own. It can be a good way to work on your skills that you need for like freehand and just for accuracy for brush control. The point of this model for me is the texture. Like, all of the textures that Jason put on here are really awesome. And so I really feel like I want to double down on all these textures, so this helps me to do that. Oh, got a little bit too much paint on the brush, and that's when you get that dabbing look instead of that really more refined brush stroke that you can build up. That's not a big deal. I can just refine them with my black indigo. Narrow them down a little bit. They'll look a little bit more graceful. Paint over them a little. There we are. There's a ridge down the shell here, so I'm gonna make sure that I get those areas highlighted. Kara is very helpful. So we got kind of going on. Now we got to get these little circles just like over the other place. I so want to see what your results are if you ever take the Clifton Strengths test, Kara. Like, communication's got to be up there, and input. I'm just fascinated. I'm just like, you might be neurospicy, but I'm just curious. I'm really so curious what your strengths are. I wish that damn test was cheaper. I would like have everybody take it. It's the same. That's the thing about the strengths. That's why it's so fascinating to me. Every strength can also be a detriment. Like, every strength has a basement, as well as a balcony, as Becca describes it. Balconies being when your strength is working for you in a positive manner, and basements being when your strength is kind of running you and, like, not being constructive or useful. That's a cool pattern, isn't it? Yeah, I think there's a less version. You can get a coupon if you get their little book for like just your top 5. But I find the top 34 to be useful. But yeah, Clifton Strengths, or Strengths Finder is what they call it. I actually get strengths coaching every month for my focused on writing, but it also applies a lot to my my painting. But yeah, it can just be interesting to see, like, to figure out your strengths, because, like, some of them were obvious to me, but some of them were not. Like, some of the ones in my top 10, I was like, what? And then I was like, but then as time has gone on and I've learned more about it, I've been like, oh, yeah. But, like, one of my strengths, my number 6 strength is connectedness. And when I first read it, I was like, oh, because it's like, you believe all things are connected, blah, 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 is the generalistic description. But what it really comes down to is you can see connections between things and draw parallels. And that's why I'm always like I'm finding out truth with running or writing or whatever, and immediately seeing the way it connects to miniature painting, or vice versa, right? That's connectedness. That's a strength that I have. And knowing that is just like so interesting to me now, because like I can utilize, I can be aware of when I'm utilizing it, or I can see an area where I could utilize it, right? But yeah, it's really interesting stuff. Like, because at first I was really like, ugh, when I saw that strength. Because it can also be, connectedness can also be connecting to people, right? But it depends on the strengths that are around it. Yeah, I've taken a few. I took Enneagram, but Enneagram actually did not target me correctly. And over time, just reading more into it and then reading more good books about it, I've realized, what Enneagram number I really am. And now that I realize that, it's a lot more useful to me. But I found that the tests were not great. At least they didn't give me a good result, a real result. I had to do a lot more work. But I think the Clifton Strengths has been the most useful, like actually useful for figuring out the best way for me to be productive, for me to finish things, for me to work around my weirdness, my idiosyncrasies, why my idiosyncrasies are there in the first place. Yeah. It probably takes a good 15 or 20 minutes, but the point, you actually will like this. The point is to actually read through all the answers and to snap judgment every single one of them. Like, don't overthink it. You look at the question, you choose the 2 things, you choose the one that resonates with you more, and you move on to the next question. I think it's like 130 or 150 questions. It might be more, but it takes a chunk of time, but if you're fast on the click, you can get through it faster. And there was a question that like I just froze because neither one was relevant, and that was fine. That's valid. It'll just go on to the next question after a certain period of time. I think it only leaves the choices up for like 4 seconds or something. It's like 4 or 5 seconds. Yeah. But I found it really interesting. It's got a lot of the Clifton Strength stuff. Now, a lot of the stuff on their actual site is very business oriented, Kara, which might be useful to you. You do work in, you do actual, not just self-employed job stuff. But I think the real money is like when you start applying it to like creativity in your process. And for that, you can actually go to my coach's like YouTube and get a lot of info on that stuff, as I recall. I'll have to look them up. Although the little write-up they give you where the top 5, they go really in depth and they kind of interpret it according to your actual strengths. Anything below your top 5, you tend to get just the general standard response, but it can be very interesting to see how the things that are up there that make you tick. But with the way that you like absorb and disseminate information, I'm willing to bet that input is one of your top ones, Kara. I don't know if I'm willing to bet money, but I have a strong suspicion. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, if you take it, I'd love to know what your top 5 are. It'd be fun. I always like learning about myself though, right? Like, because I'm always trying to get a little bit better at being me. And I feel like Clifton, like this Strengths Finder, really helped me to do that. Like, it's absolutely helping me to be more, like, to get more done of the things that I care about. Once I really started to focus in on like my execution strengths and like how they work, and to understand the things in my other strengths that would like hold me back from executing. I wonder if Becca has a free level on her Patreon. I don't remember if she does. She's got a mailing list, and it's worth subscribing to that. Just because, although she is talking mostly to writers, it applies to all creatives. So, if you kind of sub artist for writer, you're probably going to be right where you need to be, as far as her stuff. And I think she's one of the only people doing like work with creatives regarding Clifton strengths. But yeah. Stinky one of the traits. But yeah, like understanding that because I have a strength called discipline. It's at number 7 in my lineup. It's number 7 out of 34, so it's in my top 10, so it's pretty strong. And discipline wants routine. You do not get things done with this skill unless you have a routine, which explains why I got, F all done in my first, years on this planet, because I didn't have a routine. I was always just pinballing around at all. I just didn't have it. And yet, when I had a routine, I was very good at executing. But I just couldn't see it. Like, it was right in front of my face, and I just couldn't see it until it was pointed out to me by this test. And since then, I've realized, this is why I eat the same thing for breakfast every morning. This is why I have a routine of putting out my clothes the night before. This is why, like, because something, my brain understood that was the way that I was going to get things done. And then by taking that and like blocking out specific areas of my day to work on the Patreon, to work on YouTube, to work on my writing, I've been a lot more successful. So things like that, discovering things like that has made that all worth it. But yeah, I couldn't juggle so many things, honestly. If that strength helps me juggle so many things. Like, now that I know how to work with it and can lean into it, like, understanding that has made me able to juggle the YouTube, the Patreon, the writing, and the running, the exercising, the meal tracking, like, just, add it all up. It's crazy. And if my routine goes out the window, all of those things go out the window. Like, I'm lucky to get, like, one thing done a day if I don't have my routine. Because it all just, like, skids into a messy pile. But now I know why. And, many people aren't going to have that particular, thing, and they're going to execute in a different way, right? But just knowing, like, kind of getting insight to how your brain ticks, it's been really valuable to me. right, so we got a lot of nice underpainting in done, and it's already time. So I definitely need to swatch these colors. So let me get scale. Boop, boop, boop. Yellow. The yellow is really what I need to do. So I need to get that swatched down, and I need to make a note of how I built it, because it was definitely weird. Well, maybe your Clifton strengths will return Weasel. I mean, that'll be new. But like, I could see things like parts of your personality that are working with that Weasel. Like if you have something like Achiever or Maximizer, those things are never satisfied, for example.